Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. I'm Yomesh Gupta. In this video, we are going to talk about JavaScript promises. We will, take a look at the very basic stuff, then eventually move on to intermediate to advanced. We'll cover what are the different scenarios, how promises work, what are the, chaining mechanism happens, and what are the error cases, how to handle different type of error cases. We'll cover roughly 18 type of scenarios, and eventually using that knowledge we are going to write a JavaScript promise polyfill. It is a pretty advanced topic, and in advanced interview question that is often asked for senior roles in various companies like LinkedIn, Mindtickle, and other companies. Also, this is like a masterclass that if you watch this video, which I highly recommend till the end, then you will have a very deep understanding of JavaScript promises and how this whole async thing works. And this could be a multi-part, that this part is more about the different scenarios of promises, and the second part is more about how you write the polyfill. I haven't decided if it's going to be multi-part or single part. Maybe later on we'll check. Plus, I highly recommend this. Like I said before, do not skip. You can fast forward the video as you like, but I would say watch it till the end, and do mention in the comments what's your learning, if I missed anything, if you would like to add anything, so that I can take care of that in a following video. So without wasting any time, let's get started. So before going to actual implementation and actual topic, I would like to bring your attention to the DevTools Tech platform briefly. So, I'm going to write the code, and this interview question that Promise Polyfill also exists on the platform. It is often asked by LinkedIn, and here it's mentioned. You can see on the screen, right, that we have the DevTool Tech platform. If you go to guides under company, you have all the 56 companies listed so far, but there I'm constantly adding more. That you have questions from Uber, Atlassian, Meta, Paytm, PayPal. They're not sorted alphabetically, others randomly added. Expedia, you have from Klarna, Flipkart, Google, and so on. So this is the platform. If you are watching for the first time, the DevTools Tech platform, you can go. It is like one of the leading platforms for front-end interview prep. I would say go make the best use of it. I personally know a lot of people and a lot of users from the platform that have practiced questions here, and eventually were able to crack interviews from top companies. The package could be 50 LPA or even more than that. I know people in different companies who have done that. So this is your, the best part of the platform is that it is built by a front-end engineers for front-end engineers. So I understand what is the requirement, what is the need of the community, what sort of questions are actually asked, and what are the questions that are actually important in the industry. So again, go take a look. If you feel anything is missing, then do reach out to me. I will definitely look into it. And I hope this my content and plus the platform helps you in some way and be a part of your success journey. So what we are going to do here is that I have this code snippet. I'm going to walk you through what this is doing, and then I will keep on modifying it to add and showcase different cases and different functionality of promises, be it happy paths, sad paths, and edge cases, and so on. I also have a list on my second screen what I need to cover, so I might switch here and there in between to cover everything. But the whole idea is that with this snippet, we will understand what are the state changes, what is chaining, and everything. So let's see what's happening here. So we have this init function. This init function returns a promise, which we are capturing in this instance. So basically, this instance will have a promise here, because init returns a promise. Now this promise takes a executor function which is present here, and this executor function will have two parameters. One is resolve and one is reject, and we are resolving it with a value 10. And when this is resolved, when this resolve happens, then this then callback which is attached to the instance is going to be executed, where it will print the value is b. It is so far straightforward. Now the first point to understand here is, which is mentioned here also, that this executor function that we pass to the constructor of promise when invoked with new, it is executed right away after promise constructor invocation. That means, let's say this is our promise class, and inside this promise class we have constructor which receives the executor function which we are passing here. Now this executor function is executed right away as, let's say, the first line or the first thing to do in a constructor, and we pass two methods here, this dot resolve and this dot reject. So when we run this, then we will see the output is value is 10 because this executor function is executed right away. And we have dot then. Now this returns a promise. So how come we are having this dot then? What is this dot then? So if I come here and if I console log my promise here, or not promise, if I console log my instance here, and let me clean and run this. So you will see that this instance is a promise instance which with the fulfilled value or promise result as 10 and promise state as fulfilled. Now inside this, on the prototype chain we have this property called then. So this instance dot proto dot then, this exists. That's why we are able to call it. That means that this returns a promise, and on promise prototype we have a then property. That's why we are able to invoke the then. So this is important to note here, that let me note it down also here, that then exists on the prototype chain of promise slash promise instance basically. This is important to remember because we'll come back to this. Now another thing to remember here is that this whenever promise state changes from pending to fulfilled. Now we know that in our promise there could be three states: pending, fulfilled, and rejected. The initial state is pending, and when inside a promise, when we do resolve, this pending state, which is the initial state, changes to fulfilled. And when this happens, then all the callbacks that we are passing to then, which is attached to this instance, this particular instance, are invoked. So basically the idea here is that let's say let's consider you have an array or dot then. In dot then we are passing a function fn, where fn is this v console log. This is stored, let's assume this is stored in an array, and as soon as the state changes from pending to fulfilled, which happens on resolution when we call the resolve, then we iterate over this array and invoke every callback. As simple as that. That's why when we run this code snippet and executor function is called, which calls resolve, which changes the state from pending to fulfilled, and as soon as fulfilled is called, all the then callbacks are executed and we see it value is 10. Now one more thing we can do here is that, just to extend this, let's say I add another then here, which is second then value, and this is maybe first then value. Now what we are doing is that on this original promise instance, you have to remember that this is the original promise instance. Here we are creating the promise chain. On this particular instance we are setting two then callbacks here back to back. And now if I run this, both are saying first then value is 10 and the second then value is 10. So this is like more like the analogy is, let's say, pub/sub or event mechanism, that when the state changes from pending to fulfilled, all the callbacks that are listening to it should be invoked with the value which was passed when the state change. So when we resolve it 10, then all the then callbacks attached to this particular instance. This is not chaining. We are not chaining. We are not saying dot then back to back. We are saying dot then as two separate instances on this particular promise object or promise instance. Basically two occurrences of then on this instance, and that is why both are getting value 10. Okay, so we have to understand that we can these callbacks are also called, let's say, resolution handler. So we can add multiple resolution handlers on a single promise instance. That we need to understand. Now another thing is that we can also do one thing. Rather than having it separately, we can also chain them. When we say instance then and we have a callback here, then we have another then inside, but this is not returning anything. So let's return v plus 1. So now we remember that initially it is getting resolved with 10, then we get inside this, then we are getting the first then value is 10 and we are returning v plus 1. So this will return something like 10 plus 1, which would be 11, and this should print 11 because here we are getting 11. So now if I clean this and if I run this, see, we are getting 10 and we are getting 11 as two separate values. Earlier we were getting 10 in both because both the callbacks were getting invoked when this instance changed value, but in this case they are separate. So now we need to remember one thing which I talked about earlier, that then exist on the prototype chain of promise instance, right? Like this is a promise instance and that's why we were able to call then. But why are we able to attach another then here? There is, because we have this then which is the original promise instance. So how come we are able to do the chaining? How come we are able to access another then? So from our initial understanding, we get a sense, we can make an inference that this instance dot then, we are doing like this, instance dot then dot then. So this basically is returning a promise, because on promise only we can do dot then. I'll repeat if it's getting too confusing. We initially did instance dot then, but we have again changed chain another then callback. We are only able to do this if this instance dot then returns a promise, because on promise only we have this API dot then which exists on the prototype that we saw here. Okay, so now, but if we see our callback which is present here, we are not returning a promise here. We are not doing anything async here, or we are not returning promise dot resolve. We are not doing anything, but still instance dot then is returning a promise. Why is that? So the thing here is that when we pass dot then, when we do this and we pass a callback fn, which is basically this value, I'm calling this fn, it wraps it inside a promise. So it would be something like new promise resolve, and this resolve value is going to be resolved with the output of the callback. So fn, let me repeat this, that this then, whatever, whenever we call this method then, it wraps the function which we pass, this fn, with a promise, and this promise is going to get resolved. I'm just talking about the happy path, is going to get resolved with the output of this fn, whatever is the output. Let's say this fn, because that is why when we do v plus 1, so this is 10 plus 1 11, so this is something like this. Let's say we have v and we do v plus 1 and then we do another here. So this v is getting a value of 10 and we return 10 plus 1, which is 11. And so next v, which is, let's say, getting x and console log x, so this will return, or this will get 11 value, because this fn, which is v plus 1, returns 11. We resolve the outer promise with this value, and that's why the next then gets this value. So now let's take a look at another behavior here. So far what we were doing is that the function we were passing to then, the callback here, it was returning a non-promisey value. We can also return a promise from here, like let's say new promise, and it's take a resolve, and this is going to get resolved, let's say, after some time, maybe resolve uh, 10 or v plus 1 after 500 milliseconds. So the idea here is that from this then callback you can return a promise value also. You can return something that is a promisey value when this resolves. So now what's happening here is that inside our then we have this callback. This callback, which is fn, returns a promise. Now when this promise resolves, let's say this resolves with 10 plus 1, which is 11. It resolves the wrapper promise, and that is passed on either as output or to the next 10. So if I run this right now, see, first value is 10 and the next value is 11, because we are printing it here, and after 500 milliseconds we are resolving this promise. When this is internal promise is resolved, then it resolves the wrapper promise from then, and then it eventually goes to last then, and we are printing and we are returning nothing from here. So it works fine. Another thing we can do here is that like I mentioned, that promise state changes from pending to fulfilled when resolved is called. Okay, but what if we have a scenario like this? Let me comment this out or remove this. Let's say we're returning 10 plus 1 here, and what we do is that we, on this instance, we set a timeout. Like, let's say we do a timeout, and after 100 milliseconds this is going to set a new then callback here. It is going to get the value y, and we are going to print the value y here. Let me call it then inside set timeout. So now what do you think would be the output of this? So we know that this output would be 10, we return v plus 1, so this output would be 11. But what would be the output of this statement here? You can pause the video, mention your answer in the comments, and then let me know. So now if I run this right now, let's see what is the output. So the output is 10, 11, but then inside set timeout is still 10. Why is that? So this is not chaining, that this then exists out of the outside this particular promise chaining. It is still promise, but it is outside this promise chain, because like I mentioned earlier, that this instance is the original promise instance, and when we directly set a callback on this dot then this is attached to this promise instance. So like I mentioned, this fn, let's say this is fn1. So if we call it fn1, then when we do it inside the set timeout, then this is fn2. Now the difference here is that whenever we know that when pending state changes from when the promise state changes from pending to fulfilled, we iterate over this array and invoked every then callback. So that is why all the then callbacks attached to the original promise instance or single promise instance will receive the value with which this promise was resolved. So this promise was resolved with or resolved with 10. So this fn and this one also receives the 10 value, which is the original promise resolution. Now, but the difference here is that by the time this is executed, by the time, because this sets a macro task queue, and by the time this is executed, this whole promise chain is over by then, but still it's executed. So the idea here is that we can queue then callbacks even after promise is resolved. So when this then callbacks execute, the promise chain, there is no state change in the promise. The promise is now, as soon as we call resolve here, the promise changed from pending to fulfilled, and since it's called fulfilled, this got executed. This one changes to fulfilled, this got executed. Now after 1000 milliseconds, or let's say, if I increase this time also, let's say if I do 3 milliseconds and 3000 milliseconds, which is 3 seconds here, it will still say 10. Then we have then inside set timeout, which is also 10. So this is even after 3000 milliseconds, when the promise has already changed state, then also we can queue and we can run the callback. The simple analogy, something like that, I can give you an analogy here, is that let's say I tell you that tomorrow at 5 p.m. I'm going to tell you a secret. Now anyone who listens that announcement is waiting for 5 p.m. that once 5 p.m. Happens tomorrow, then the secret will be out. Now anyone after 5 p.m. tomorrow, let's say, so the people who listened the announce, or people who got to know about the announcement before 5 p.m., they are in pending state. As soon as 5 p.m. hits tomorrow, the state changes from pending to fulfilled, and everyone gets to know about the announcement, the secret basically. But anyone after 5 p.m., let's say 5:30, 6 p.m., and so on, since the announcement is already out, they will get the secret right away. So same thing applies here, that when you have this then callback, this fn, it is going to wait till the promise changes from pending to fulfilled state. But this then callback, we are attaching it after a delay in this particular scenario when the promise state already changed from pending to fulfilled. Now, since the promise state already changed and it is in the final state, this then callback will be executed right away, and there would be zero delay. I mean, I'm trying to make you on a very high level, trying to make you understand on a very high level, that since we are queuing a then callback, queuing, if I'm writing it right, the spelling, queuing from when state is already terminal, in this case fulfilled, then callback will be invoked right away. Okay, so and it will get the original resolution value. So this is important to know. This is one of the quirks, you might say. Also, let's see another different scenario. Let me comment this out. So we saw a setting after from when the promise is already fulfilled. We saw wrapping the promise. Now let's say what we do here is that we do resolve 10. Rather than this, we also do resolve 20. So we have two resolves now. Now, what do you think? Is it going to get the value when we resolve this? Then this v, is it going to get 10 or is it going to get 20? So if it's going to get 20, then this value will return 20 plus 1. And if we have another, then x console log second, then value is, so this should get x. So if it is going to get 20, then this will print 20 and this will print or should print 21. So let's see, let me clean this, let me run this. So it is still printing 10 and 11. So the thing here is that this second resolve has no impact. Once you call a resolve or reject, whichever is the case, then state either changes from pending to fulfilled in resolve case or pending to rejected, then that's a terminal case. You cannot change the state of the promise after that. So this second resolve has no impact. However, let's say if I do something like console log after resolve, after resolution, and if I clean this and if I run this now, then this case after resolution is still working. We resolved the promise, but we are still going on this statement. Resolve doesn't mean return. This is important. People sometimes miss, especially junior engineers. They think if we resolve a promise or any function, async function, if we are using promises and we call resolve, then that's the end of the execution. No, the promise still goes, or the execution of the function still goes. If you want to stop it, you can do return resolve, something like this. So as soon as you do that, this becomes unreachable code. And if I clean this and if I run now, then you won't see after resolution callback. Oh, I'm commented it out, or let me show you here. See, you are not seeing after resolution in the second execution. Now we talked about then and everything, so we know that we have catch also. So let's talk about catch a bit. So console log catch, or we'll call it post catch value, is, and we'll print the error. Okay, now to execute this, the very simple case is that rather than resolve, we will do a reject here. and when we do reject, the promise state changes from pending to rejected, and when we run this, then we get first catch, the value is 10. The whole logic of chaining and everything works here also. However, I'll show you one more thing, that let's say we have after catch we have a then. Let's say this is going to get y, and we are going to console log then after catch, and we are going to print the y value. So, and what we are going to do is we are going to return error. We know that error value here we are getting 10. So if I do 10 or plus 1 here, you can pause and tell me if this is going to be executed or not. If yes, then what is the output? So if I run this now, then you can see that the first catch value is 10 and then after catch is 11. So now what's happening here is that this catch, this also goes into rejection handlers, just like we have this array of resolution handlers. For catch also, when we do catch something error, in this case from pending it goes to rejected, and all the catch handlers, in this case this one, let me call it gx and or fn only in this case, and this is going to be all the callbacks will be executed or invoked. However, just like then, we know now that this then callback, it wraps the entire callback, I mean then wraps the entire callback into a promise. Same happens here, that this is wrapped inside a promise, and whatever is the output of this, that wrapped promise is resolved with that value in happy case. Now the same thing applies here. Let's say I just copy this over, I paste this, rather than then we'll make it a catch. We pass an fn, then that fn gets wrapped by a promise. When we return a value from here, it successfully resolves a promise. That is why we are going to next then. Let's say we want to bubble the error, we don't want to go to next then, we want to either go take the error outside this promise chain or maybe to the next catch block. So we can do something like promise.reject. Let's say promise.reject v plus, or in this case error plus 1, and let's say I copy this, I paste it here in the chain. This is second catch value, I comment out this. So when I run this now, this we rejected with the 10 value, that goes to the first catch block. This first catch block prints the value, it adds 1 and then it rejects and it goes to second catch. All the thens, even though if you are even setting it inside the timeout or whatnot, everything is skipped because you're bubbling an error. First catch, second catch, first catch. Okay, so let me run it again. See, first catch and second catch, all the then callbacks are skipped, even no matter how many you queue, they are all skipped or they are all rejected. Now what we want to do here is that, so this is all async right now. Let's see what happens here, that if I do something like, so this promise.reject is a promise API. What if I throw error? What, let's say I throw error which is maybe 10 here now, or error plus 1 in this case. So what do you think? This is a synchronous error, this is not async. When you throw, that is a synchronous error, throw new error. So is it going to go to catch or is it going to be uncaught rejection? You can pause and tell me. So now if I run this right now, let's see what is the output. We still get first catch value is 10 and the second catch value is error 11. That means it is going to this catch block. So the idea here is that inside this callback, if we get any error, if we get resolution, then it bubbles to the happy path. If you get an error, then be it sync error, be it async error, the wrapping promise, which is this one, will be rejected if there is a sync or async error, and it will be resolved if there it's a happy path. Okay. Now the same thing applies to this also, that rather than I am returning, what if I throw from the executor function itself, I just throw, let's say, 10. Now is it going to be uncaught error or uncaught rejection, or is it going to go to our catch blocks? So let's see, let's run this. See, we are saying first catch value is error 10, and we print out the entire stack trace because we are doing console log here. We are going to the first catch block, and then we are saying then after catch, because this is getting resolved, there is no return value. So this is ideally, when there is no return, then it is void 0, which is undefined, and undefined is getting returned. So y is getting the undefined value, and we are printing it. So from, we can take a inference from here that this, since when we are making the, we are throwing the error in the executor function, so this is something like this in our promise class, or should be something like this: catch error, and then we do return this dot reject, and we pass the error. So if executor function throws an error, be it sync or async, then we will reject it. Then we'll, or sorry, if it's a sync error, then we will catch it and we'll start the rejection promise chain. Okay. So the same logic applies here also, that let's say what I do is, on this instance I attach a second catch. This is not in the chain, this is, now the chain is over, that on original instance I am having a catch handler here, and to then and catch handler here. Now inside this, I, rather than throwing, I'll just reject 10, and let's see what's the output here. So if I clean this and if I run this, then see, second catch value is also 10 and the first catch value is also 10. Now why this ran first and this ran later? Because of the chaining. And if I remove this, because it goes to all the then and start rejecting them. If I do this right now, then you will get first catch first. See, there is a difference. If you have a chain, then it goes through the chain and keeps on rejecting all the then callbacks. But if you, and if you have a direct catch on the instance, then it is invoked first, because it's directly attached to the original instance. That's like event happened. Now when that event happened, then you invoke that the attached callback, which is this. But in our case, in this case, when there was chaining, so now on the original instance there was a then. Now when original instance failed, this then also rejected, then this promise, it returns a rejected promise, this then is also rejected, then it goes to the next catch. So be mindful of that, that this catch will happen later and this catch will happen first, because it is on the rejecting promise itself. And the same logic applies here also. Let's say if inside the set timeout we have a catch, and we say catch inside this, and we run this, you can pause and tell me what's the output here is. Then you will see we have the second catch, then we have the first catch, and after 3 seconds we have the catch inside set timeout. So this is again going on the original instance, but it is attached after the promise state changed from pending to rejected. That is, it is after we are in a terminal state. So when you attach a catch callback in a terminal state, then it is executed right away with 0 delay. But this is happening after 3000 milliseconds. That is why you're seeing it late. So we covered a lot of scenarios. I think one more thing I can show you here would be, let's say if I comment this out and comment this out, uh, wait, comment this out. Now this then callback, we are passing one argument here, which is the first resolution or on fulfilled handler. Let's say, what if I pass another argument here, another callback, which is going to say console log second argument, and we'll print the value x, and from here we are again going to either, let's say, resolve right now. Let's say we are saying x plus 1. So here we'll reject with the value 10, and we have the first callback to then the second argument, then second, then, and the catch. So if I run this right now, we will see that we go to the second argument scenario. Here we were rejecting. So basically the thing is that there are two ways to call the then, that when we do then callback, and when we pass fn first function and we pass the second fn. So the first fn is the resolution handler, and the second hand fn is the rejection handler. Basically this is behaving like catch block. What we are doing here, this is exactly the same, the second argument. And here, since we are returning x plus 1, that means just the like the same behavior we saw here, that we reject, it bubbles up, it goes to the catch block. The second argument is the catch block here. We are simply returning a value here, so it resolves in a happy case scenario and we go to next then. However, if we do something like promise dot reject here, and we do x plus 1, and now we run it, then we do go to the second argument, which is this, we get the value 10 here. We reject another promise which is with 11 value right now, and we do go to the first catch with the error with the value 11. So this is as simple that we are behave another way of writing catch block, where we bubble a error and it goes to the nearest catch block, and the chain keeps on going on till you end the promise chain. So I think we covered a lot of scenarios. It's time for promise polyfill. uh, I think we will cover that in the next video. I will definitely say that we go through this video again, try to understand all the concepts. If you think I missed on something, if you think something is pending, or some more scenario in promises that I haven't covered, then please do mention in the comments, do reach out to me. And all this learning plus more additional things are present on the Devtools Tech platform. I keep on adding more things, promise guide, plus I'm coming up with a resume guide which will be out soon for exclusively DevTools Tech users. So I would highly recommend, go check out, get your lifetime access or whatever access you want to get, and move closer to your dream job. So till next time, see you, take care, bye bye.